2019 saw me introduced to a lot of new series and a lot of great books that I want to talk about, but only 10 can stand above the rest. So let's talk about the top 10 books I read in 2019. Hey, what's up, bookworms? Mike here today to talk about another top 10 list because I know you guys love those, right? What I want to talk about specifically is the top 10 books that I read in 2019. Great year. I'm finishing up books number 56, 57, and 58 right now. One of those is one that I'm reading with my kids, so I don't really count that. It's a Harry Potter book. And the other two are the current Blood of Elves by Sapkowski and the Demon Cycle book number 3. But I don't anticipate that it'll take me until the end of the year to finish those, so I want to go ahead and count them. So my goal for the year was to read 50. I didn't think I was going to make it because a lot of the series that I started, the books were just massive, like the Lightbringer books and like the Wheel of Time books. They were just huge. But I was able to offset that with a few shorter books and make that goal rather easily. Again, this is the year that I started this channel, so obviously there was a lot more reading going on than I involved. But something I want to say before I begin is that I am not counting books that are rereads. If it is something I have read in the past, like a lot of the Stephen King books I read this year, those were rereads. I'm not counting them on this list. I have tried to avoid putting multiple books from one author on this list, but there is one that was just too good, and I couldn't not put both of them on there. So with that said, I'm going to get going with this, and it is, again, just opinion, guys. Yours is probably going to vary quite a bit. But I will encourage you, please, to drop them in the comments. Let me know what the 10 books that you think stood above the rest that you read this year, if you read that many. Again, I know not everybody's as fast of a reader as I am, but that's okay. That's okay. As long as you're reading, that's all that matters. And you ain't watching this channel if you're not reading. These are going to be in preference order. So I'll start with number 10, count down through number 1. Number 10, I talked about it recently, Stormfront by Jim Butcher. I took forever to start reading the Dresden Files. A lot of people told me you kind of got to struggle through the first 2 books. I had a blast with this book. So much fun. I said it's basically Buffy the Vampire Slayer meets Harry Potter. That's something that I'm all about. I love Angel. I love Buffy. Harry Dresden is basically Angel, but with being a wizard instead of a vampire. So this is something that I'm very, very into. I'm looking forward to continuing this series. They just announced the release date for the 16th book in the series. I don't know if I'll be able to catch up by then, but I would not mind doing that. I don't see it being a problem if I actually focus on it, but there's just so much other stuff that I want to read. I'm not sure, but judge off if the 2 books that I've read that I continually see them towards the bottom of the rankings when fans rank the series. If that's the worst that this has to offer, man, I'm in for a heck of a ride, and I can't wait to keep going. So very, very excited that I started that series. Another one I did a review for recently, and that was The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. That's number 9. The reason I enjoyed this quite a bit, I think, is because it was me stepping out of my comfort zone of reading just horror, sci-fi, and fantasy. That's mostly what I do, pretty much all that I do. So reading something that was a little bit of a crime novel was a nice change of pace. This was actually a recommendation from my wife. I told her that if she read a book that I recommended, I'd read one that she recommended. This is what she recommended. So I'm glad she did. I'm very much looking forward to continuing the series, and I hope it has the same quality that this one does. Because if you watch my review, I liked it quite a bit, and I think Elizabeth is just a fantastic character that I can't wait to get to know more of. Number 8, you'll probably think this is a little high after how much I raved about it, and that is The Blinding Knife by Brent Weeks. This is book 2 in his Lightbringer saga. I thought book 1 was one of the best first books in a fantasy series I had ever read. Book 2 blew it away. This is such a strong book that, I mean, it's like the size of Stephen King's The Stand, and I still blew through it in a week. It's a page turner in every sense of the phrase. I could not get enough of it. Fortunately, things kind of went down after that, but this book right here was just superb. I loved it, and that tells you how strong of a year it was if I can be this high in a book, and it's number 8. But I do look forward to finishing the series this year. I just kind of took a quick sabbatical because I was kind of burned out after reading 4 of these this year. So there's that. What number are we on? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Number 7 is The Last Wish by Andrzej Sapkowski. I'd been interested in reading the Witcher books when I found out finally that they were not actually based on the game, but that the games were based in the world that he created. I had no idea. At the time, I thought that because you see the book covers and you think of they got the video game on it. I thought it was like the Halo books that were written after the game got popular. I had no idea until someone actually pointed out to me that the Netflix series that they were making was going to be based on the books, not the games. And I was like, what are you talking about? Why would they do that? Then someone explained it to me. So I had no idea. And The Last Wish was just a fun thrill ride. I usually do not like short story collections, but these were done in such a way that it framed them to where they actually were like a framing story with these short stories involved, and they all kind of weave together in a narrative that made sense. And it was a very, very, very well done introduction to this world and this character, Geralt. And it's done in such a way that I think is approachable for anybody. They're short little bites, and you'll go through them really quick. It's, again, another page turner. Each one of them kind of almost had like a fairy tale moral to it, and it's so well written. The guy's prose is fantastic, and I don't even know if any of this was lost in translation, because these were Polish and translated to English. If it is, I mean, the written word is just beautiful when it's done right, and he does it right, and it seems like it's only getting better, honestly. But I really, really resonated with every story in this one. Were really, really well done. Number 6, and you might think this is kind of high because of how anticipated it was, and that is A Little Hatred by Joe Abercrombie. And I feel like this one will probably go up after the whole trilogy is complete. Right now, it's just 1 out of 3. So, it's kind of interesting to see where the story's going. I liked the new characters that he created. I liked the returning characters. This is, if you don't know, this is book 7, if you don't count the short stories as a book. Book 7 in the First Law series. And it takes place like, almost 30 years after, the original trilogy. So you get some of your returning characters, and then you get to meet basically their kids in this one. And again, it's just Joe Abercrombie. There's a reason he's my favorite fantasy author working right now. Everything he writes is visceral and real, and just you can relate to so many things. Even though you know that these people are not good people, you find so many reasons to care about these characters. And he continues to do that here. The ending was a big old gut punch. Really, I still am not over it. Honestly, you can watch my reviews on those if you want to know. But yeah, very, very promising start. Does not feel like tacked on because the series got popular. It definitely feels like something new and something fresh. And I'm looking forward to the next book coming out in 2020. Unlike other fantasy authors, he is going to release a new one September of each year, leading up to finish this next trilogy. And anything that Joe Abercrombie puts out, I'm going to buy. So he could write a book about Cinderella, and I'm going to read it probably. Number 5 is going to be The Warded Man, or The Painted Man, by Peter V. Brett, whichever version that you got. I think in UK it's still called The Painted Man. I don't know. I don't know what the story behind that is. Again, another book 1 that I did not think I'd like as much as I did. I'm a sucker as a Stephen King fan for the coming of age story, and this has 3 of them in it, and they're all really, really good. And this book spans about 20 years, and I didn't expect that. And each one of their stories, coming to how they culminate together at the end, is perfectly placed. It's an incredible new world that Brett created with this. I love the idea of the demons coming from the ground kind of thing. It kind of feels still grimdarky, fantastical at the same time, but it also feels like a little different than all the other fantasy series I was reading at the time that just kind of got so much stuck in the tropes that you see with everything. And I'm still working my way through the series right now. I'm in book 3 of it. Still very much enjoying it. But yeah, this one right here, I'd put it up against a book 1 of just about anything. I finished this literally in just over 24 hours. That's how good it was. I could not stop reading it. I was reading it at work. I was reading it in the car. Didn't matter where I was. I could not stop reading it. So very, very high recommend. It's crazy that's number 5. It's just such a good year. If you watched my top 10 Wheel of Time moments, you know which Wheel of Time book made this list. And it might not be the one that others always put on there. I constantly see The Shadow Rising and Lord of Chaos as everybody's favorite book. For me, it wasn't even close. It was The Great Hunt, book number 2. And the reason why is because I read Eye of the World and I felt like, yeah, it was fine, but it's not anything I haven't seen in every other fantasy series that I've ever read. This one takes the hard left turn and goes completely different. There is a scene in this book where it just kind of completely blew my mind. Again, watch that video if you want to know. It completely blew my mind wide open to where this is something different. This is something special. I can understand why this series has a legacy that it does, because this had so many fresh ideas that I, as a very, very well seasoned fantasy reader, had never, ever even thought of. So good. So good. So many twists and turns with this, and an ending that will absolutely floor you. And his writing style and the battle scenes in this are so wonderful that your mind's eye is just going to come up with something completely epic. Yeah, the man is a wizard, and he proved it to me early with this book. He stepped away from Tolkien and did his own thing, and thank God he did, because this book is wonderful. And that's only number 4. Nuts. I told you that I had one author that made the list twice. And most people were like, wait. I thought you said nothing that you've read before. I love the original First Law trilogy by Joe Abercrombie. When I found out that he was putting out more books in that universe, I went from excited to not excited when he said it's not a direct sequel, it just takes place in the same world. And if you know how the ending of that book, book 3 of First Trilogy ended, you know that there was a certain character that did not get their comeuppance, and I felt robbed of it. And at the time, I was not really, well adjusted to grimdark, and I was like, I just want to see this character get his comeuppance, and you're telling me he's not even going to be in the book? I don't even care. So I never read the standalone First Law books until I said, okay, he's putting out the sequel trilogy this year. I want to reread all of them, and actually read the 3 standalones that I did not. And Best Served Cold is the one that I put on this list as my number 3 book for the year, because imagine The Princess Bride and Count of Monte Cristo in a very grimdark setting. This was the most fun I had reading a book this year, and it's huge. And I feel like this is the only book in that series that can stand up to the original First Law trilogy. It's that dang good. I loved every character in it. I felt for every character that passed in it. I even like the villains in this. If you want to consider anybody villains, because I've always said the thing about this series is there are no villains. Everybody is just morally gray. And I loved everyone in this book. Every character that he wrote, I think to the day, it still has the best action scene that he's ever written in this really good 2-on-1 sword fight that was just spectacular. And again, all it could make me think of was Wesley and Inigo's sword fight in Princess Bride. It's so good, guys. I cannot. If you are one of those who's read the trilogy and is like, oh, but do I need to read the standalones before I read the new trilogy? No, you don't have to, but you need to, especially this one, because like I said, this one to me stands up next to that first trilogy so well. And Mansa is an incredible protagonist. Let's put it there. Very layered, and it's a character I think that we'll be seeing again sometime down the road in his series. So, yeah, 2 books from Joe Abercrombie, and it's amazing that you would say, oh, you liked it more than A Little Hatred? Yes, I did. Again, I think that Little Hatred, once I've got the full story, maybe it'll be more. And I loved it, don't get me wrong, but this was something special. Everyone should read this. Read it. It's very good. Number 2, you didn't think I was going to go without putting a Stephen King book on this list. And it's not The Institute. I said in my review for The Institute that I was kind of lukewarm on that book. A book that I had always put off reading for the longest time was The Long Walk. And the reason I did that is because I said, I don't know. It just sounds kind of weird. You telling me that it's like 400 pages of people just walking? I don't know if I want to do that, I mean, I'm doing that full time right now, right? I'm not sure if I want to do that. And I went ahead and said, why not? I'll go ahead and do it. It was the only Bachman book I had not read yet. And this book was so emotionally powerful that I actually rolled a tear at the end. It was that powerful. And I cannot believe that King wrote this when he was in high school, released it later under the pseudonym Richard Bachman. Such an incredible book. And if you're going to sit here and tell me that Hunger Games did not rip this off, I'm still here to tell you that you're full of it, because this was everything about the now very popular dystopian genre that King was doing before everybody else. Now, I know that he's not the first person to tackle that genre, but this story to me feels like something that so many others have copied at this point. So good. So many characters. You will love all of them. You will feel it when they go. I was absolutely floored. And someone like me who has read all these Stephen King books back here, and I said this is a top 10, maybe top 5 Stephen King book. That's how much it resonated with me. It's so fantastic. And I cannot recommend it to anyone, not just fans of horror or dystopian, anything like that, anyone can get behind this book. It is beautiful. The ending tore my ass up. I'm not even kidding. And number one, is there a drum roll? I guess if I have like before honorable mentions or anything like that, it would just be something else that that was multiple authors or something like that. There was one DNF book. I don't know if this is an honorable mention, but I just want to mention before I get to number one. I did not finish one book this year. It was Eldest by Christopher Paolini. It's the second time I've tried to finish that book and I can't. My most read authors, Stephen King, I read 11 books this year. Joe Abercrombie, I read 8. Robert Jordan, 8. Pierce Brown, 5. And Brent Weeks, 4. And several others with 3 or 2. And so naturally, you might be able to deduce that my number one for the year is Golden Sun by Pierce Brown. Is book 2 of the Red Rising saga. I know that Red Rising stuff does not do very much on this channel, but I'm going to keep preaching that gospel forever because I feel like this is a sci-fi classic that people are missing out on, especially this book. I love Ender's Game, and I always get constantly told, Mike, you should try this book since you liked Ender's Game so much. It's a lot like it, and then I read that book, and it's not. This is the first one that actually is, and I feel like this is the best science fiction book I've read since Ender's Game. So much fun, so many twists and turns, betrayals, backstabbing, action, drama. It's got everything, and it is just non-stop. This book has 0 lulls in it, and there is so much emotional resonance in it too. It isn't just a boring action. I don't want to say boring action book. It isn't just a brain dead action book. This was the book where I felt like he took it from, I feel like I've heard this before, to, again, like Jordan did with Great Hunt, where everybody said, oh, well, Eye of the World was just kind of Fellowship of the Ring, whereas a lot of people felt like Red Rising Book 1 was just Hunger Games meets Lord of the Flies. I felt like this was when he made it his own, and he made something incredible, and he made the relationships between the characters mean so much that you started to prefer a dialogue, a one-on-one dialogue between two characters to the big epic action sequences. That's how well of a written book this is. And I've finished this whole series up to this point right now. There's 5 books out, and I finished book 5 last week. And I feel like he's just becoming a better writer as it goes along. The series is drifting more and more into the grimdark category that I love so much. And guys, this is the best science fiction series that you aren't reading. All I can do is keep talking about it. Again, I don't care if the videos don't get a lot of views on the channel. That's fine by me as long as I'm getting a couple people to read this series at a time. Then I feel like I've done my part. I can't say enough about it, and I feel like it was definitely the best I had this year. It was hard for me not to put Iron Gold, that's book 4, not to put that on this list too. It was close. It was very, very close. Yeah, that's become one of my favorite series now. So that's my top 10 for the year, guys. What was yours? Did you read 10 books this year? I'm sure you did. So please, if it's just the 10 that you read, go ahead and drop them in the comments. Let's talk about them. If you just want to talk about the best book you read this year, let's talk about it. If you read any of these, let me know your thoughts. If you want to read any of these, please let me know that you plan to if you're adding it to your TBR, because I recommend, obviously, all of them, but Red Rising and Long Walk are going to be ones that I recommend to everybody that I meet now. If you've held off a long time on reading Stephen King, perfect introduction book for you, I think. If you're just looking for something new,